Welcome to this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm Danny, here with Trevor and Noel, and this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Speaking of which, since what are we on? Like, we've done maybe 5 or 6 episodes now, somewhere right around there. I'm not even sure.
I'm going to say several. I'm going to go with several.
Several's a good number. How awkward is it having to do this podcast in front of our significant others? Has it brought up any situations at home yet? Since we kind of get a little deeper on this podcast. We don't really get deep in our regular lives with our significant others. So has it brought up any tension or anything?
For me, it's not so much awkward speaking in front of my wife. It's more awkward speaking in front of your significant others. That's because...
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
Because my wife really doesn't care what I say or do. Because she'll love me regardless.
She's literally laughing right now.
So I say that with a big grin on my face because it's bullshit. But, your significant other is judging me for what I have to say or my opinions on things. So that's what I think is dynamic and interesting doing it.
None of you have had your significant other actually on a freaking podcast, so let's just go there. I right now have the most bonus points of anyone here right now because that was tough, especially when she's sitting right there and just judging everything I'm saying. In a good way, of course, babe.
Yeah. I knew the exact date of when I last cried. It was because of you.
That's recorded. That's on the internet for everyone to hear the last time I made her cry.
I'm waiting for somebody to ask questions about that. Let's see, how was that? What happened? What did he do?
You can leave a comment on the boards, please.
Absolutely, yes, along with a review.
You know what? Probably my biggest thing is I don't want you guys to say something about me that maybe Megan doesn't know. So
what you're saying is you're hiding things.
I'm not hiding anything, but I don't know what you guys are going to bring up from my past. We've all known each other for freaking ever. Trevor, I've known you since we were 12 or right around there?
Yeah, I'd say around there, yeah.
Seventh grade.
Yeah.
Danny, we met, it was a little after high school, right?
Yeah, I was 21, 22, 22,
yeah.
22,
so
yeah.
We got some years on us, and I've done some stupid things in my life, so something's going to come up in one of these episodes. I know it. So I'm saving up my brownie points, and I'm going to use them all at one point.
It's going to be that oh shit moment.
I'm going to hit the easy button, and there's going to be 20,000 flowers coming to the door. It's going to be something.
That was easy.
Yeah.
1-800-Flowers is going to be your favorite, your favorite thing.
Today's episode is sponsored by
all the money Noel spent to make Megan happy after what he said.
But yeah, I never thought about what your guys' significant others might think of somebody else's point of view, which I don't even think they care about what the other person's saying. They're probably specifically just trying to hear what we have to say. I don't know if Megan cares what Trevor's life story is. She might. I don't know. I don't want to speak for her.
I feel like it sticks with her for at least a week until the next episode comes out. So
then it goes right out the window.
And I think what I think is cool is I didn't know Trevor as well as you know Trevor, for example. I've hung out with Trevor probably 10 times, 12 times, something like that. Is always whenever everyone got together and that sort of thing. And I found out so much about Trevor just talking about, perspectives and the different topics we've had. And it's been really interesting. I really like that part of this. I like that you kind of get into someone's psyche. I think that's...
Yeah, you build a relationship in a sense by finding out more about them. I mean, even though we're not talking directly to each other, but we see how our brains think on certain aspects.
I feel like Cupid kind of brought you guys together. I knew it was going to work. Man, this is fantastic. Let's do a little backstory. I moved to Modesto in the 7th grade. I'm not exactly sure what year that would be. Megan? We'll
live studio audience fail.
We'll get the year from
I like to phone a friend.
Yeah. But yeah, 7th grade, and I was super awkward because the way school worked back where I lived in Visalia, 6th grade was the highest grade through elementary, and then you went to 7th and 8th grade for middle school. But as soon as we came to Modesto, it was different. You went because it was 6th and 7th grade.
6th, 7th, 8th.
6th, 7th, 8th, right. So everybody knew each other for a year when I came to Modesto. So when I came in, I was the brown kid with the mustache, had the weirdest haircut, and I think I befriended some of probably the weirdest kids in my class. Luckily, Trevor lived down the street from me, and we kind of just ran into each other one day walking home. And ever since then, I think, what did I give you? I gave you some like fries or something, right?
I was going to like the park or something. Then you came home with your mom after getting McDonald's.
Burger King.
My bad.
Get it straight, bro.
I need to cite my facts there, but yeah, you gave me like your fries basically, and friendship blossomed.
I was about to say, yeah, a French fry friendship. That sounds like a tongue twister.
It was more of like a bargaining thing. Like I needed protection because I was the weird kid with the mustache, and I said, "I'll give you some fries if you."
So it was like a prison relationship. You were buying protection and friendship with food.
Yeah, and it worked out because we were friends forever since then. We just started hanging out, this and that, and we've been best friends since. But I've had some crazy stories down the road. But Danny, you met me way longer in my life. It was so right out of high school, I was already, I would say, I hit my prime. Because I was super weird before.
Are you past your prime now? Is that what you're saying?
That went out the window.
Back into his career already.
Yeah, I'm still I'm in like rehab right now.
Poor Megan.
The true Hollywood story, Noel.
I think the weirdest thing about this whole podcasting thing is as we get deeper into the stories and stuff like that, you're going to hear a different side of me that you probably never even knew about. And Trevor, you're going to know pretty much all of it because I was pretty close with you for the most part until maybe the end of high school and this and that once we got older and started doing our own lives. But I think that's what's going to be cool about doing this podcast is all of us kind of really learning about each other and seeing where our roads took different turns and we went our different ways, see how things went. Yeah,
I kind of like it because it's this triangle thing. I'm going to learn more about you, Noel, but I'm really going to learn a lot more about Trevor. And I think vice versa. I think we're going to, because we're not as close as you and Trevor are, Noel, but we're going to learn a lot more about each other. And that's been kind of cool because I've lived all over the country. I was born in Detroit. My backstory here, I was born in Detroit or in Warren, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. Lived there till I was just turned 6. And then moved to California. Lived out here in Escalon, out in a little farm town of it was like 6,000 or 7,000 people when I moved there. In 1996, I believe. And I lived in Escalon, grew up on a farm. I mean, we raised goats and chickens, and you've heard all the stories about how we'd have our meat chickens, our egg chickens. I mean, we had our own turkey for Thanksgiving. I helped goats give birth. All these crazy stories, man. I lived on a farm.
Trevor's mind is getting blown.
Yeah.
No, you should see my reactions to all these things. I'm just
no, dude, I remember getting up in the middle of the night and my mom waking me up, and I was homeschooled. So, I mean, that's another, difference from either of you guys. And just waking up in the middle of the night and my mom okay, throw a coat on because it always was in winter when the goats decided to have babies. And, we'd run out there and help the moms have the babies and make sure they were accepted, by the mother. And it was really cool. It's a lot of stuff that I took as normal, but I tell all my friends now and they're just like, what are you talking about? Oh, you mean you'd raise up chickens for meat and you can do all that stuff. And I'm like, well, that was normal to me. We had a huge garden, and one of my coworkers made a comment on that the other day. I was telling her that we raised all these tomatoes and peppers. We had winter gardens. So she goes, that's not a garden. That sounds more like a farm. And I'm like, wow, it actually was half our huge, backyard on our acre property. And yeah, so I was I had this whole upbringing that was so different from everybody else. And I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. It was more like baseball, and I played music in the symphony and played the violin, and having that whole not having sports and not going to school every day. I finished school a little sooner than most people. I only did half the year for my senior year because I'd finished all my schoolwork and I graduated early. And then we moved to Florida. I lived in Florida for a year, but it was a different dynamic than I think either of you have. So it's going to be interesting as we continue to keep recording. There's going to be a lot more a lot more to come out. You're just finding out this stuff about my country past.
Yeah, animal killer.
I know, right? Oh my goodness, I had to explain that too.
Yeah.
For all you vegans and
Yeah,
stuff out there, I have the utmost respect for animal life.
Did a prayer before every killing,
but they're delicious.
Right. But let me tell you, there's something about free range chickens that is just so much better than what you get from the factory farming in the store.
Trev, you were the youngest of two, right? Your sister, right?
Technically, yeah, because my sister and I, we're half siblings. So, but yes, I was the youngest. We're about 5 years apart. So we weren't really close, especially when she got into high school. I mean, I never saw her at that point. So it's a good thing I befriended Noel because he kind of became like a sister to me.
Wow. Didn't see
he
that
is very
coming.
he is very he's got the beard, he's got the hair, just like every girl, it's
I had a mustache when we met. What kind of girls are you hanging out with?
Mind you, it was a 7th grade mustache. So.
Oh, okay.
My
framed with puka shells.
Hey, all right. Why does this always get to the bash on Noel period of the freaking episode?
You're just an easy target, I guess.
I was not like your sister. I was like your brother. Get it straight.
Yes, I was just throwing a jab out there.
That shit.
No, but I was born and raised in Modesto. I didn't have really adventures as far as moving across states or anything. I did travel a lot with my parents. I was very lucky to be able to go on some places. Went to Hawaii when I was a kid. Went to Spain before high school started.
That was a cool trip. I wasn't there, but I lived it vicariously through you.
He saw pictures, and I got some postcards with naked ladies on it. So that
didn't need to be a part of it, but that's cool.
Hey man, we're telling our lives right now. So.
And remember that earlier comment about things coming up in the podcast.
Sorry, Mom.
No, but yeah, after that fry incident, I guess you could say,
infamous fry incident.
Noel and I were pretty much best friends. I mean, to this day, I still consider him my best friend. I mean, there were years that we weren't as close as I would like to be. I had to kind of grow up and become a father, and we were at such a young part in our lives that Noel was having fun, enjoying the pre-21 and 21 age, but I was becoming a father and raising a child not to murder people. So that was that was kind of my life.
If somebody doesn't listen to previous episodes and hears that,
that's going to
get a little weird
out of context so hard.
Please
listen to the episode on fear.
But I mean, if you think about it, be like, wow, that's a great point. Don't raise your kids to murder people. I mean,
yeah, it's true.
Was there ever a point where you wish you would have done your life differently? If you could go back and do something differently, where would you go and what would you do?
I would just go back to high school and just take school seriously. I mean, that's one thing that because I was very lazy in school. I mean, I always passed.
Oh, preaching. You're preaching to the choir.
But I would love to actually attempt school for once. I mean, there was a handful of classes that I really tried at, and I would say I was pretty successful at it. But for the most part, I was just doing just enough to get to next grade, where I feel like Danny didn't really have that kind of, not motivation, but laziness, because I mean, homeschooling, I can only imagine how difficult it would be to slack off there.
I was the valedictorian of the class, also at the bottom of the class, most likely to succeed, most likely to fail, most attractive, also most ugly, prom king and prom queen. Yeah, no, it's a different dynamic. I had a hard time when I got into college because of that, because I couldn't work at the pace that, like, quote unquote, the dumber kids were working at. Like, that sounds awful, but you know what I mean? Like, when you're in college, classes slow down when, like, someone who doesn't get it keeps asking the questions.
We're trying to gain followers and can't be throwing out slurs like that, man.
Had to be me. No, but I was awkward and nerdy. Trust me, I wore Harry Potter glasses before Harry Potter came out, so you should see some of the pictures. My girlfriend Jackie saw some of the home videos of me the last time we took a vacation up to my parents in Idaho, and oh my goodness.
If you think that picture won't get posted on our Facebook, you were blindly mistaken.
I'm sure Jackie will get you that from our live studio audience.
I think that is hands down the best. I'll post a picture of myself too. I think all three of us need to post a picture of when we were younger. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah,
for the audience, I mean.
Yeah. The good cute baby picture, or the awkward one.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, for sure.
Oh, we should all post 3 photos.
Yeah, do like a little trifold photo of it.
Of course, it'll be hard to find a good one of Noel.
Yeah.
Come on, man, this guy.
First he's a sister.
Yeah,
and then
now I'm the ugly sister.
You know what it is? It's because we're so insecure with how we look. We're like, damn, man, we got to put him down.
That beard, my God.
He can grow up. Like, he could just shave it all off right now, and tomorrow he's going to have a beard. just the way it is.
Thicker
I'm not
than
sure if I'm
mine.
supposed to take that as a compliment or a
Total
That's a good
compliment.
thing.
joke.
Coming from the guy with like, chest hair. Like that's a good thing. Hair is a good thing. It makes you manly.
I'm trying to think if there was a point that I would go back and change. I mean, Danny, you didn't really get in. Is there anything that you would go back and be like, nope, not doing that again?
Well, there's one thing that like my whole life I've always wished I could have had. And the decision my parents made was to homeschool us, just because a lot of the stuff that was being taught in public schools and all that, it was more of a religious thing too. But the biggest thing and my biggest like miss out point in my life is, how competitive I am. I would have loved to have played high school sports. That is the one thing. I don't care about any of the other experiences. I really don't. Like, I had a great childhood, great teenage years. I've had a great life, honestly, really. But I really wish I could have got to wrestle. I really wish I could have got to play baseball. Like, I really, really enjoyed that stuff. And it's a huge, like, I'm big on brotherhood. I'm big on teamwork and that support structure of playing sports. I think sports are so important for society. And for me to not do that, that's the one thing that sticks out in my mind to this day that I still like regret not having, even though it wasn't my decision.
I feel like when we first met Danny, it was either on a basketball court or on a football field or the diamond or whatever we were playing. I mean, that's really our first interactions, was us playing sports together. Mm-hmm. And no matter what sport we played, you were always really good at. And that's something that I always told Noel.
So annoying.
It is annoying. I mean, we could play freaking like frisbee golf, something that nobody's really good at picking up, and you would probably just destroy us all.
That's something.
Let him tell a story about how he was the frisbee golf champ in 1998.
Well,
First in his
we'll
class.
go beside that. We did have frisbee golf on our farm, and I used to cut out a course. Like, no joke, I'm not kidding. We
Point
also
made.
used to cut out wiffle ball courts. Like, but it was the thing. Like, we call it like the Prado thing. Like, me and all my brothers, like, we say we never excel at one sport, but we're above average at all of them. Like we never would have gotten that scholarship to play a college sport, but we're athletic enough to where we can be good, or at least passable in all other sports.
Where your Letterman jacket has every sport logo on
Lacrosse, what other ones? Upside down frisbee throwing,
it. Track and field.
I wonder if that's just a mental thing, something that maybe your parents installed in you guys, that just whatever you guys are going to do, you guys are going to try your hardest at it and you're going to get it done type thing. Because, I mean, all your whole family's like that, even down to Alice. Like, I mean, Alice she
played tackle football with us.
Yeah, she's no joke either. So, I mean, that's crazy. That's just how you guys were raised, I would imagine. And, I mean, obviously your genes. I mean,
I don't want anyone to think
athletic.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to think my sister's like 250 pounds either. Like, she's like 98 pounds dripping wet, and she was playing tackle football with guys and tackling them. That's what happens when you're in the middle of four brothers. But yeah, no, like I think the thing was, like, I always remember one quote, because we didn't watch any TV too. That was another thing about being raised in a religious house. Like, we just weren't allowed. We watched a lot of old movies and a lot of movies that didn't have like any sexuality type stuff in it or cussing. But the big thing for us was we loved the weekends, because Saturday after yard work, we'd play sports in the backyard. Like, we'd play baseball or wiffle ball or something, or football. Well, my dad barbecued. And then Saturday, we would watch college football. We'd watch Saturday afternoon baseball. We'd listen to the Giants game. And then Sunday was football. And that was what we did. And I remember one quote from a college football game. I remember it was Bobby Bowden, coach of the Florida State Seminoles back in the day. And this is like kind of something I always like strove to do when I played sports. And my dad called attention to this quote, and it was a really funny quote, because he said something to the effect of, he was saying like a pregame prayer with the Florida State Seminole football team, and he said something like, "Dear Lord, let these boys go out there and do the best they can do, because that's all they can do, Lord. It's just the best." Like, it was like no pressure, just you can only do the best you can do, so just give it that and you're good to go. And I kind of like live by that when I'm competitive or play sports, or even like doing this podcast. I like to just there's no pressure, because it's the best you can do. That's it.
I wonder if you having so many siblings played a part in that too. Just always having somebody that you can be competitive with as you were growing up. Because I didn't have that. My sister, like, we didn't compete. We didn't do anything. We might have competed of who could piss off our parents more, but there was no, hey, let's go play baseball in the backyard, or hey, we're done with we didn't have chores, but we don't have anything going on. Let's go play ping pong or something. There was none of that. So, and same with Trev. I mean, you didn't have that with your sister either. So, I wonder if that played a part into it. You just always had somebody you could be competitive with. Not saying that's why you guys are so athletic or whatever. But
It is, though.
I mean, I'm sure it played a big part into it. I'm jealous, slightly. not to say that I would want to change my life. So if I was to pick something to go back and change, I don't think I would honestly change anything. Not saying that my life is great, just saying that I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. And I feel like if I was to butterfly effect it and go back and change something, I might not be where I'm at today. And I'm pretty happy with where I'm at today. I mean, just the fact that we're sitting here doing this on a Sunday, my life's pretty great.
Yeah.
And I've watched a lot of videos and people have a lot worse than I could have ever had it. So I don't think I'd change anything. If I was, maybe go back to school and do better. But even if I did that, I probably wouldn't have met Megan because I copied like all of her work through high school. So we wouldn't be as close. So I don't know. I don't want to mess with that stuff. It's good.
The eternal bond of a relationship, copying in high school.
Help me graduate, please.
Yeah.
That's love.
Hey, I was using my resources. But yeah, no, I don't think I would change anything just because I would be in fear of what would happen from changing something. I don't want to mess with that timeline.
I think we can all agree, like, we have pretty good lives. You know what I mean? Like, we've got good relationships and we've got great relationships with our friends. And, you know, we have all women that love us, or at least say they love us. But, you know, I mean, they at least fake it really well with the love. But we've got it really good. I mean, we're recording a podcast as one of our hobbies. You know what I mean? Like, this is the dream. In all reality, we're living a great life. I mean, you know, everyone makes mistakes. That's the one thing you have to kind of like always remember is like all these people we put up on a pedestal, celebrities or movie stars or whatever, they've got just as many personal problems as we do, if not more. So, you know, you got it pretty good. And I think that the vast majority of our friend circle are that way. You know, we're all happy with what we're doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all very fortunate to, be where we are. I mean, we're all healthy. That's one thing that people take for granted for sure is your health. I mean, my dad always sends me clips of stuff happening around the world and be like, oh, just be thankful that, you know, you are where you are and your kids are healthy and like nothing crazy is happening to them. So that's one thing that I'm, you know, very fortunate to, you know, be born and raised in America. I mean, as much as people rag on it and say how terrible it is, I mean, we are very fortunate.
Yeah, I was thinking about that kind of idea the other day. I was sitting there and I was thinking, man, if something were to happen to me, if I was to die today, I don't know why I was thinking this, but I was sitting there, if I were to die today, I would still be probably really happy because, I mean, I have my own house. I have soon to be wife, but I mean, we've been together so long, it's almost like she's my wife, but amazing friends, amazing family. And there's nothing that I was like, man, I really wish I would have done that. Like, it sucks I never got to do that. And even like I sat there and think, it's like, what do I want for the future? Like 20 years down the road, where do I want to see myself? And I still picture myself in this very same spot. Like, I'm not saying that I've hit my peak or anything like that.
You did say that earlier.
Yeah.
No,
backtrack.
Wait. I'm just saying in my life. I don't feel like I've hit a goal or something that I'm done or anything like that. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to have a bigger house maybe someday, have a pool. But those are all just luxuries. Like, I don't think there's anything important in my life that I feel like I really need to improve or anything like that. I think I've made a lot of choices in my life that have got me to where I'm at, and I'm really happy with the people that are around me now. I don't really feel as if I have any people that I'd be like, nah, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have friended you or anything like that. I mean, what about you guys? What do you think? I mean, how do you feel about where you're at in your life right now?
I agree with what you're saying. But I think that for myself, I'm always trying to, I guess, strive to be way better than I am now, which is like the tough thing, because there comes a point when that becomes kind of like a psychotic thing where you're just like, man, I'm never happy with where I'm at. And it's that whole struggle of looking at a goal and you got to realize that actually when you achieve a goal, you're not really happy when you get to the end of it because it's over. You know, and that's what life is. Life is just a goal. That's the whole part of it. And you have to enjoy the journey. And I think a lot of people, I think there's just got Aubrey Marcus. I've mentioned him in previous ones. He's a CEO of On It. And he in his previous podcast had said that something about goals, and it's not really the goal itself is what's going to make you happy or make you satisfied. It's the journey along the way. And I think that's what our lives are. I think I'm really enjoying the journey. I'm enjoying where I'm at right now and the moment. Yeah, exactly, Trevor, the moment. Like, it's a great spot to be in when I can hang out with my friends, you know, and work hard. You know, it is nice to have a job. I think, honestly, if I have too much time off, and I did this when I moved up to Idaho, not this last winter, but the previous winter. I went up for a month, and I was applying for jobs and I was getting all this stuff, and I only ended up staying up there a little over a month. And that month of not working was really depressing. Like, it's nice to be able to get up and go to work and you feel a sense of purpose. And if you're a religious person, that's in the Bible. Man must earn by the sweat of their brow type thing. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But, it makes you feel good. When you have a good day at work and you accomplish some shit and you get home, like, your day's better. When you go and work out in the morning, when you go do something like that, like, you feel better. But how good you feel better after? Yeah, I know we joke around about it not being fun, but like, it sucks in the moment, but after, man, it's the hardest part of your day. No, when we used to go do those CrossFit things in the morning with Tyler, like, fuck, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd have to go work a whole day. I felt great because I kicked the hardest part of the day in the ass.
Yeah, those were actually probably my better days. You're just so awake afterwards. Your whole body's just in a whole different, your mind, not your body, your mind's in a whole different mindset once you're done doing something like that. And I don't know if it is what it is about it that makes it so gratifying or puts you in such a good mood, but it is weird.
Yeah, so that's like a hobby, right? So working out would be considered a hobby, that sort of thing. Like, a lot of people would consider it that. Since we're talking a little bit about ourselves and our stories and how we know each other, what kind of hobbies do you have? Like, what is something that you really enjoy? What's your unwinding thing when you get home?
Oh, well, that's pretty
Keep
easy.
it PG, bro.
I mean,
www.
A hobby is trying to get my kids to sleep early so I can do whatever the hell I want afterwards. I mean, that's a big hobby for me. I love TV shows and
Art
movies.
of distraction.
Yeah. TV shows and movies, video games for sure. Shout out to Overwatch. Occupying my time for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, that's your guys' little
our crutch.
Yeah, your addiction right now.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, movies. I mean, I love movies. If you go to my house, you will probably see at least 100 movies in a cabinet and just siphon through. I mean, we have everything: action, drama, woman movies. I mean,
rom-coms.
Yeah, rom-coms. And then TV shows. I love binge watching Netflix series. I mean, right now I'm watching Shameless.
Isn't it better, like, sometimes when it's like 9 o'clock and you got to work early in the morning, isn't it sometimes easier to not make that full 2.5 hour investment of a movie, but it's like, okay, we could knock out one more episode of that TV show. That's how I am. Me and Jackie, like, if we're gonna stay up late, it's a TV show, because it's easier to invest an hour than it is to invest 2.5 or 3.
That's true, but I make the bad mistake of it being 11 o'clock. Like, I can finish this 2-hour movie.
Oh.
Is it the movie and the shows that you enjoy, or the escape you get from it? Just the idea of, all right, I'm going to spend this next 2 hours and I'm just going to be out of everything. Nothing's going to matter because I'm just watching this.
Well, that's a big part of it, kind of throwing yourself into that universe. I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings, so I love immersing myself in
×2
in J.R.R. Tolkien's world. I mean, it's just
talk about freaking disappearing for a week. Those things are so long.
It's worth it though. I mean,
read the book. Oh my gosh, you'll disappear for months.
Where's Danny? Oh, he started Lord of the Rings.
Oh my goodness, that was my favorite book growing up. And still to this day, my absolute favorite book is The Hobbit. The Hobbit is the perfect story. It's like only about 300 pages, but it's from start to finish. I mean, it's the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell has that he writes about mythology and like the essence of story and myth in our day and age and in the past. And Joseph Campbell broke down that hero's journey, and that's literally The Hobbit. It's start to finish, and there's adversity in the middle, and there's great characters. And I mean, The Hobbit is, you speaking of J.R.R. Tolkien, I mean, that was one of my favorite books growing up, still is now.
I mean, short, sweet, to the point. I mean, it gets all the highs and lows, the growth of the main character. Yeah. I mean, we're getting to a podcast here of reviewing a book, but yeah, Tolkien. I mean, the man, the myth, the legend. I mean, created a universe, created a language, multiple languages. I mean, just incredible what one person can achieve when they set their mind to something.
Yeah, and it's amazing how someone can, we think of like, our computers having so much data and storage and all this stuff, but the human brain is just the ultimate hard drive. I mean, it really is. And the ultimate creative force. I mean, Jackie and I just watched Ex Machina the other night, or if that's how you say it, but it's a fantastic movie about AI. It's got Oscar Isaac and Domhnall Gleeson, and it's a really, really good movie, Alicia Vikander. But we were watching it, and it just, they're replicating AI in it, and it just wonders, like, is that really going to happen? Are we really going to create an AI that's going to be as complete as the human mind is in creating things and be spontaneous? I think that's the main thing. Like, human beings are so spontaneous. We find new hobbies all the time. Like, I used to read as a kid so much. We're talking about books. I'm finally getting back into it. That was my like New Year's resolution this year, was to start reading a lot more. And then that's what I do like every night now. I'm trying to knock out 2 or 3 books a month. And it's fantastic. Just the wealth of knowledge you can get. It feels like you're filling up a hard drive, you know, the more you read about. And as a kid, I used to only read about subjects that I found interesting and things that I already knew something about. Now, as an adult, I've changed it to where my hobby is reading about things that I've got gaps on. You know, if I have a topic or something that I'm like, I really don't know anything about that. Like today, I bought a book on Viking mythology or Norse mythology. I know about Greek mythology. I know about Roman mythology, but time to expand the mind a little bit more.
So you're kind of judging a book by its cover when you're younger. So.
Exactly.
Good for you, Danny. Good for you.
I've always thought about doing that, walking into Barnes and Noble and just grabbing, you know, all those the books for dummies sections, and just learning a random craft that you would never pick up, but just go through it, learn it, and then boom, grab another one and just start learning some just random just knowledge that you would never need, but hey, you might have it at some point, and you might need to use it, but I don't know. I thought that would always be fun. Haven't done it yet, but you never know. I might pick up like hacky sack for dummies and just sit there and learn all kinds of stupid shit.
Yeah, but
not as cool as your mythology stuff, but
no, but it's like it's funny too, because like things like you were saying, like just learning a different craft or learning a different thing, like that's so fun. You know, and people will accuse a person of being like, oh, you're ADD because you don't stay concentrated on one hobby or one topic or one subject. No, but why don't you want to try to learn everything? That's like how my mindset shifted from a few years ago. It's like, I want to learn about everything. Like, really, I want to as much as possible. I think that's kind of one of the reasons we started talking about doing this podcast too, was like, I want to learn about other perspectives and other topics. Like, that's really fascinating to me.
I think for me, hobbies wise, the one big one that I picked up more recently than I know of, but golf was a big one. And I realized it wasn't so much going out and playing golf, but I found that when I went to the putting green and practiced, I'd be out there for maybe an hour and a half just on the putting green. And for some reason, that was like the most zen I've ever been in my life. I don't know if it's because I was just focusing on the ball in the hole or whatever. I'm not even trying to say that I was practicing on my game. Like, it just took me out of it. I put my phone away, put everything, and I would just be in like a little zen zone on the putting green, and I'd be out there for hours. And that was probably, for me, trying to find a hobby was something that was just going to cause me to just kind of get away from everything, because I had high stress for a long time, years. I'm talking like past 5-6 years. I don't know why. I don't know if it was work related, relationship related, but I had stress through the roof. And so going from that and trying to find something hobby-wise that was just going to cause me to not be so stressed out, which you would think golf, probably the most stressful game you could possibly play, is so frustrating. But finding that zen spot on the putting green, I mean, that was huge for me. And then once we started talking about this podcast, I think that's just another huge hobby that I'm really getting into now. Is I find on my downtime, I'll get on the internet and just see what we could be talking about, how we can improve the podcast, and really just have conversations. And I think that's probably going to be one of my passions. I think at this point is going to be the conversation side of things. Maybe not so much the podcast, but seeing how I can create better conversations with people, because I think it's such a big thing.
Yeah, and how you can carry some of the things, like when we sit and talk for 45 minutes or so, like how you can carry that into your everyday. Like I'm starting to realize that I can do that more. I can formulate thoughts a little bit better. I start to think out things before I say them, and it's, I don't know if it has everything to do with the podcast, but it's nice to have this avenue to be, like we talked about it, being therapeutic. It's really nice.
Definitely. And it's just a different dynamic when you're sitting there having a conversation like this. Is you don't get to do this ever. I mean, we've been friends for so long, and we've never sat here and had deep conversations like this. And I'm hoping later down the road they're just going to get deeper and deeper, and we're going to learn something that we maybe didn't know about ourselves. Ooh.
Well, just to go upon that point, I mean, the fact that we're not on our phones talking to each other is such a, big aspect about this. I mean, we're actually having deep conversations and actually paying attention to what people are saying, as opposed to being like, yeah, I'll listen, but I'm going to do it on my phone while I do it. So I mean, that's something that's really cool about doing this podcast.
Danny, I always wondered, I mean, this might take a minute, but so since you were homeschooled and all that good stuff, how did it feel getting out of the house and becoming independent and doing your own thing? I know you moved in with Chris and Stephanie first.
Yes.
Chris and Stephanie are good friends of ours, known them just as long as anybody else, but talk about that a little bit. How was that mind shift, that transition for you? I mean, because it's completely different than anything Trevor and I have ever had to do.
Yeah. So with, being so close knit with your family, there's a lot of pros. So there's a few cons as well. And, I'd be remiss not to say that it was difficult to feel like you're missing out on things, that whole FOMO thing. Like you feel like you're missing out on quote unquote a normal childhood. Looking back on it now, though, I'm so grateful for the childhood I had. But when I was 20 at the time when I moved out, and I was ready. I was just reaching that point where it was like, it's time to go, fly the nest. And that whole first experience, I think I literally sat in my room and played video games for like the first month I was living at the house with all of our close friends now. But I sat in the room and just stayed to myself. One aspect of that was just because I hadn't got to play a lot of video games at home, so I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops like nonstop. I don't even own a video game system now. Like I haven't owned one for a couple of years, but it was a weird dynamic, shifting from a very non-social, I wouldn't say really non-social, but like, you don't see different people on a day-to-day basis. It's really an introspective type life when you homeschool, and your activities are really, kind of limited to playing baseball or going to, play music. We had a lot of music lessons growing up. And you kind of have this little bubble that you live in, which is a really happy bubble. When you get outside of it, you get corrupted technically right away, and you start realizing that money is a huge thing and you really need to pay your bills and all that sort of thing. But it was a nice dynamic to get out and actually do things. Like it was nice to get out and have new friends and have new experiences. And that's one of my favorite things in the whole world, is to have new experiences. I want that for the rest of my life. I want to constantly be trying new things and pushing the envelope a little bit and making that happen.
Yeah, it's definitely different from Noel and myself. I mean, we've been, like we've already mentioned, close for so long that you never really got to have that aspect of, having a non-family member be your best friend in a sense. I mean, I'm sure you and your siblings are extremely close. I mean, how could you not be? So I'm sure that was a fun experience, kind of going out and meeting new people and kind of getting to that level with Chris and Stephanie because you lived with them first. But to kind of throw yourself out there in a sense of, building a relationship with somebody that don't necessarily love you back. So you're kind of building your first intimate relationship outside of it.
Yeah, I am extremely close with my siblings. Like to this day, we're very close. Like we know, screwing up or not screwing up, we're always going to be there for each other. Robert and Alice and Vincent, Joseph, my siblings, I absolutely love them. I would do anything for them. We had this really cool bond because we were each other's friends growing up. I mean, we did things to the point, like when we were kids, I drew up a playbook. Our cousins would come and visit us like once a year or once every couple of years, and we would play a football game against them. And as competitive as the Prado kids are, we were like, we're going to kick their ass. We're going to win. I drew up playbooks. I was having my 9-year-old sister, run button hooks. Like to this day, Alice can run a freaking button hook. And like the little boys would be blocking, like we had it down. We were extremely close. Like we were watching home videos the other day, and it was like just flashbacks instantly to these warm, fuzzy moments of like showing my younger brother how to field a grounder or something. And it was a blast. Like those are the moments that like my life is built on.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like, I mean, obviously Noel and I wouldn't change our lives really for anything, but to have a sibling, like a brother with us that was a year or so apart from us, so that we can kind of grow with them and, draw up playbooks or be close in a way that, it's unbreakable, that brotherly bond that, I mean, I'd say at one point Noel and I were much like brothers because we were inseparable after the Fry incident.
Well, it was just different for us. Yeah, maybe at a younger age. I mean, obviously you were homeschool and everything. For us, we did it through friends. I mean, myself, Trevor, and Tyler, one of our really good friends also, he I mean, that would be our brothers, I would imagine. We grew up, we played games together, we did all that good stuff. It just wasn't as consistent as, I mean, with your family. You had them there all the time. Us, we had to like either sneak out of our house to hang out if we wanted to be late, or we had to do it right after school and we'd just goof off the whole time. So yeah, it's just a different dynamic, I think. Trev, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into this or not, but I mean, how was it for you? I mean, right towards the end of high school for you, I mean, Iris got pregnant and everything. How was that transition going from being fresh out of high school or close to it and then having to deal with that with your parents and stuff?
I mean, I have no problem talking about it. I mean, it's such a critical part of my life. I mean, it's such a growing aspect of my life as well. I mean, to go from goofing around, I mean, being part of the unemployment club with a few of my buddies to being like, oh crap, like I have to mature, even though, I mean, a lot of people would say that I haven't matured much, but
you've changed
just enough.
Yeah, I mean, I do just enough for them not to murder people, but I mean, it was tough having to kind of, you know, take the bull by the horns, just kind of attack that situation head on. I mean, it was very difficult. I mean, I would never trade my life or trade my kids for anything, but I would never tell anybody, oh yeah, you should definitely have kids right in high school or right out of high school. I mean, there's so much growth that you need to achieve after high school. I mean, you really don't become yourself until your early or mid 20s. I mean, you haven't lived life yet. I mean, that's something that Danny got to achieve after, you know, moving out. I mean, he got to live his life and kind of see what life is like outside of the household. I mean, that's something that I won't be able to achieve without my kids, unless they move out when I'm in my early 40s, and Iris and I could go do whatever the fuck we want. And that's something that we definitely...
That sounds like a life plan.
That's definitely one thing that we're definitely looking forward to. So early 40s, we're definitely going to tour the world.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do you feel like that you like missed out on quite a bit of stuff because of it?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, when you and the guys were out partying, I mean, you always invited me. I will say that. You always said, hey, are you coming out? And I'd always say, maybe. And you're like, dude, just say yes or no. I'm sick of this maybe stuff.
I remember that. I remember that a lot.
The worst was after you guys had your first kid, and he started getting old enough. Aaron was getting to that age where you could start coming hanging out and stuff. And then, boom, another one was coming. I was like, God damn it, we just got you for Sunday football. And I went right back to it. I remember it clearly. You only came to one Sunday football at Buffalo Wild Wings. And then after that, it was back to the baby stuff. But
yeah, we'd see you for fantasy football.
Yeah,
that was it. Fantasy football draft.
I mean, that's important. I mean, that's life almost come the fall. I mean,
your team is your baby that year. Oh, that's how it works.
What's weird about it though is, I mean, we talk about it how you maybe felt like you missed out on stuff, but now that we're older, I'm almost envious of you because now your kids are getting older. You're still young. You have so much of your life, and your kids are getting older, so you get to enjoy that more now than if you were to wait till you were 30, 40, and then not really get to enjoy that part of them growing up and being with them. Like, you're coaching them right now. You don't want to be 60 and coaching them in Little League and stuff like that, you know? You started earlier. That's not a bad thing. It's just different. And I think it's that fear at the beginning of like, oh man, how am I going to do this? How is it going to affect my life? And then 10 years down the road, it's really not that long. I mean, nothing's really changed. You just got 2 kids and you're happy for it. So it's cool to see it. It was just, I mean, being right there with you when it was all happening, it was definitely scary. I mean, I do remember it all. But I would hope that you would never feel like you missed out on anything, because you really didn't. You missed out on a couple beer pong tournaments, but they weren't that great.
Yeah, but just the camaraderie, I would say I missed out on.
Yeah,
but that's what's cool about, you know, where I am now as far as my kids getting older, and you know, some of our friends are starting to have kids now, so it's definitely kind of cool. Like seeing the aspect, like I feel like the old man watching like Tyler have his kids. It's like, oh, I've been there. If he has any questions, I could definitely tell him anything. I mean, I have an 8 and a 3-year-old. I mean, I've experienced so much when it comes to kids. Like, I remember before Aaron was born, my wife's cousin was probably like 6 months old, and she handed her over to me. And I remember holding the baby like the most awkward, you know, just picture like, you know, like Arnold in Terminator 2 picking up the kid by the straps of his shoulders and just like holding the kid like, what the heck is this? Like, I was like that, except extremely more awkward than that.
Every dude holds a kid that gets handed to him that way, literally the same way. You kind of palm the kid's chest, and you're like, I don't want to drop him. Don't kick.
Nope. But the problem is that I'm going to be a father in like a month. So it's like, you have to kind of know how to do this. So it is kind of cool to kind of be where I am, to see, you know, I could definitely see where there's a kind of envious, or not envious, but missing out on that aspect. If I could tell the younger audience, if there's anybody listening that is thinking about having kids early or waiting, I would definitely say just have your kids. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have a significant other that you feel that bond with, that you can have kids with.
And I think that's important, and I'm really glad that you said that, because I was thinking about that too when we were going to do a podcast on fear. I was going to bring that up at one point, because I think that's a big fear that people have, is what would happen if I had a kid at a young age. And I think that plays a big part in what decision they make at that point. And I think having someone like you, and I've known others that had kids at a young age, they don't regret it afterwards. It's that initial fear that kind of comes up, but it's not a regret. It's just a fear. It's a doubt that you don't think you're going to be good enough for it. And when you come out to it on the other side, you really are. You're better for it. You're grown up. It's just different.
I mean, it's tough. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, to come home and have your kid yell "Papa" and like sprint towards you and want to hug you, I mean, that's just heart melting. I mean, it's just the coolest thing. And that's something that cannot be replicated in any way, shape, or form. So, like I said, if you're in your early 20s, sure, your career may not be set. But if you're lucky enough to have that person there with you, I would definitely say, if you're somewhat thinking about it, go for it. I mean, shoot for the stars. Try to start your family. Because, I mean, that carries over longer than a career can.
Yeah, it's definitely something that it's the warm, fuzzy moment, Like, that's an awesome feeling. I've never felt that. Noel's never felt that. We don't have kids. But I can remember watching as the oldest of 5. I can remember seeing my dad's face when the youngest sibling would run up to him and be all excited. And, like I can remember seeing my mom constantly taking care of us. And like, you see those little moments where that you can kind of see into the eyes a little bit, and you just see that like satisfaction with life, like life's super tough and life might suck for 23 hours and 59 minutes, but that 1 minute makes it all worthwhile. You know what I mean? Like, and it makes you just kind of sit in a happy place with your life and just go, you know what? My life's really good.
I think this is important to bring up. I remember one day with Danny, we were sitting at Bookie's at the bar, and it was right before you were going to take your trip. You did that month-long trip, and that you really wanted to do. You can get into that because I really want you to, because we were sitting there and we were talking about how people are afraid to just take that leap because they're afraid to leave their job, or they're feeling missing out on something. Like you said with your kids, like you're nervous, you feel like you're going to miss out on something. And Danny told me, if you really feel passionate about something and you think it's the right thing to do, it's better to just do it, because then you're going to have regret if you don't. And I remember us sitting there, and it was a part of we all grew up at different parts in our lives. We all had our moment that we kind of grew up and had that light shine on us. And I was going through a rough patch, and I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And I kept making excuses for decisions I was making. And I remember Danny telling me this. So I made a decision, and it was only because Danny made the decision to go and take this month-long trip. He had it all planned out. He had it all done right. And I just remember when he told me that, I was like, man, if he can do it, then I should definitely do it. I would love for you to talk about that trip that you took and maybe how it affected you and how you felt when you did it, because it was a leap of faith. I mean, nobody just packs up their stuff and just goes in their car and takes trips. I mean, I'm sure there's people that do. You've told me about them, but nobody I know, not in my life.
Yeah, no, what I did was I took a month and went to like 13 national parks between the US and Canada, and I traveled by myself. And I thought that was kind of interesting to go and travel by yourself, because you're responsible for your own fate. Technically, if you want to stop or you want to keep going, that's up to you, and all the responsibility for all the planning and all the logistics and everything is all up to you. And I really, really kind of relished that. I like to seek out challenges. A little something about myself, I really like to challenge myself. And so I went on this trip, and my wonderful girlfriend was totally fine with me taking off for a month by myself, which was really cool of her. But I went, I camped at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I went up into the wilderness in the Tetons in Wyoming, and I went up into Banff in Alberta. I left my car in someone's front yard and gave them $10 to watch it in Washington. And literally, I left my brand new car in someone's front yard just so I could go hike down to a deserted beach and camp there for 3 days. It's so weird, because they always say habits take a few weeks to form, but it was really nice to not have to answer to anything like a job or it kind of formed a new life every single day wherever you're traveling. And I really, really relished that. And that taught me so much on that trip. Number one, to kind of live in the moment and enjoy your life and realize that your life could be gone at any second. Really, like you could have a, not to get all depressing, you could have like a brain aneurysm. You could get in a car crash on the way home. And that moment, like, don't waste any time, like even if it's just sitting down and, like we said, binge watching a TV show with your significant other, like those are moments that you have to think about and just go, man, I am loving it. Like, this is awesome. This is where I'm meant to be, And if you feel like you're not meant to be in that moment, get up and fucking change it. Like, just, what? Like, no one's holding you back except for yourself. And like that trip really taught me a lot in that. And I've had some good conversations with Noel, because we used to hang out quite a bit during like all those times that he's talking about. And we had some really good conversations. I mean, like 4 a.m., like outside of a bar, we had some really good conversations and some good moments on things like that. Talking about life lessons and talking about things that were bugging us. And I think like we've talked about manliness on this podcast and having that group of friends that you can really be open with and actually be vulnerable and show yourself. And like, I'm glad I have that. I'm glad I have that with a lot of really close friends and, and my girlfriend too. It's really nice to be able to kind of bare yourself a little bit and be yourself. And I think you need experiences. Like for me, taking that trip really helped me do that. And for other people, it could be something as simple as a decision they make in 30 seconds.
Yeah. People ask me about, how did you pick who you wanted to be on the podcast? How did it all start up? And I sit there and think of, who else would I rather have than my best friend that I've known my whole life? And then the person that really made me see life in a different way. I mean, I grew up around people like Tyler, yourself, Trevor, Megan, and we all kind of had the same views on life. But then meeting Danny, it was so different. It was a dynamic way of seeing things that I never really thought existed. I'm not to say that you're some crazy guru or anything, Danny, some hobby
Danny Baba.
Yeah. But you had a different view on life, and you made decisions based on different morals, and it just struck me a different way. And we had those deep conversations. And I mean, this podcast, that's exactly what it is. It's these deep conversations that you need different opinions on and different views on. And it just made sense to me. I'm hoping that those conversations that we had late at night bring their way over into these podcasts and kind of create it into something that maybe we're going to affect other people with, because those conversations that we had are meaningful, and I want it to be just as meaningful to everybody else that's listening too. And hopefully you guys learn a little bit of something about us.
That's all for today's episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes to get all updates on future content. And just remember, it's not important who's right or wrong, but it's always important to ask why.